Hello there, this is Cindy at cindybdesigns.com. Thank you for joining me today. This is the card that we will be making, and it's from our new online exclusives release as of July 3rd, and today is the 6th, and this is called Iconic Imagery. And it's a nice, sweet collection. You have ribbon, designer series paper, die cuts, the stamp set, and those adhesive back dots over there on the right. I know I promised you a technique, but I kind of found one here, like a patchwork card. And I took this. This is a concept art card, but the card that we're making today, I kind of tweaked it a little bit. I wanted to bring in Misty Moonlight, which is one of the colors in the Sweet collection. So that is what the stamp set looks like. It's two-step stamping, and you have some great line art, and you can use the images together or separately. Then you have three good size frames that will hold all the sentiments and a die cut for every single image in here, plus those little standalone dies there, the teeny tiny stars, and then you have the hearts, and then those little sprigs, which we're using pretty much everything today in here. I mean, I kept it very, very true to the Sweet. So you get that frayed grain ribbon, and then the pecan pie and clear ribboned adhesive back dots. That just means there's a little pattern going through them, which I think it makes it really jump, and I love it when they do that. So for this designer series paper, it's 6x6, and the coordination's stunning. I would never put these colors together, but I really like how the pecan pie is, and with those trees right there, that's not, I'm not going to say full strength. It really looks like wild wheat, but in the cherry cobbler, Cajun craze, mossy meadow, misty moonlight, moody mauve, and pecan pie, those are the core colors, but they go in an ombre fashion. They're either lighter or darker or true to color. And this is where I'm going through the designer series paper for the first time, by the way, and I'm getting card ideas or pattern ideas. You have the trees and the little stars, and then that plaid there, which is great. Think masculine, even a fall. So I'm going through that DSP more. The dies will cut out a lot of the images in there, but there's fall in here. You have birthdays, Valentine's Day, winter. Um, you know, that one page we just passed up, fireworks maybe. And it all coordinates beautifully. And that's why it's part of the online exclusives as well, because it's meant for year-round use and something that's not going to go out of style. You can mix and match with our other products that we have. And it all works out perfectly, and it coordinates beautifully as well. So that is it for the designer series paper. We are going to be die cutting one of the trees out for the card that we're making today, and it fits perfectly over that. And then I'm going to be bringing in from outside of the Sweet collection the stylish shapes there over on the left, and they have the stitches around the edges, and I'll be using the teeny tiny square there, and you're going to want to die cut that out 9 times. That one there that I just pulled out. And that is what we are going to do for our card. And like I said, I'm switching out Misty Moonlight, and I'm actually bringing in Crumb Cake, Misty Moonlight, and one other color, but we'll get there. So to get started with our card, we have an A2 top folding cherry cobbler card base, and I cut those two pieces down by 4 and 5 1/4 of, and then you're going to need Misty Moonlight for the sentiment. I just cut a length of that ribbon from the Sweet collection and put tear and tape on the back, some scrap basic white cardstock, and I already went ahead and save some time, die cut out that tree from the designer series paper. 2 of those sprigs, one is from champagne foil and the other one's from real red, and I went ahead and die cut out my squares, And then that piece of designer series paper, that is going to be 4 1/4 by an inch. Don't worry, over on the blog, I'll have all the measurements, everything like that. So, real red, cherry cobbler, old olive, crumb cake, and misty moonlight, Versamark, we have some white powder, and then a blender pen. Just, for a couple things we're going to do. And this time around, I'm using my clear blocks rather than the Stamparatus. I mean, the images aren't small, they're not large, they're doable, but this was just easier. And I forgot what I'm telling you. Oh, okay. I went ahead. I have no idea what I'm telling you, and I almost cut this out, but the show must go on. So, to get started with our card, I'm going to adhere the designer series paper to the cherry cobbler mat that we cut, same size, because I am putting a lot on top of that plus the ribbon over it, and it needs to have more substance to it than what the designer series paper has with the weight behind it. So I'm just giving it that reinforcement there, and that's what we're looking like. So I'm pulling in my scrap piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock, and I'm taking my embossing tool that I got the rabbit hole. I'll talk more about that later. And I already put our sentiment on a block, and I'm inking that up really, really well because I haven't used this yet, or at least parts of it. And I'm laying that down in Versamark. I'm going to do it again, but only one of them really turns out. So that's why I always do it twice or 3 times if I have the space or if I remember, because it's less work in the long run. I'm going to grab my white powder, sprinkle that on top, tap off the excess, and then I always get like an angled paintbrush just in case I have a stray fleck here and there. And I brush that off, bring my tweezers in, heat tool to heat emboss. You want it on setting to let it warm up and keep that tool moving so you don't burn your powder or your paper while you're heat embossing. So I'm going to get that finished up. I like to, on dark cardstock, actually all of it, take a Swiffer cloth and lightly rub over what I embossed just to get the powder off of it. So I'm laying down one of our frames on top of the sentiment. I'm going to set that aside so I can die cut all at once. And now I'm bringing in, I got 3 squares. I'm going to stamp our snowflake on top of that. And when you have dark colors, be careful. If you see them pull up on your image like that, that's because your image is wet from cleaning it. So I just, put it on my skin a few times and I'll dry it off just fine. And, or your shorts or something like that, and it works out. But you want to get that ink off. So I did cherry cobbler, misty moonlight, and crumb cake for our snowflakes. So I'm only bringing in 2 colors outside of the Sweet Collection, and that is Old Olive and Crumb Cake. So I'm moving on to the solid image of one of our granary stamps, and I'm laying that down in Old Olive, and then I'm going to get the solid berry, the solid holly berry, and ink that up in real red, because I do alternate between my reds, and pop that right there in the middle. And that is for our first square there, outside the snowflakes. So as I'm getting that cleaned up, we're going to move on and do another square. Now, one thing about this technique is you can determine the size that you want to do. It could be in 12 by 12 in a frame, 8 by 8, 6 by 6, and if you want to put the squares all together or not. But we have those postage dies too. Okay, Old Olive for the tree, stamped it off once for the solid image, and then I'm putting the line art on top of it in full strength, and then I have a nice contrast there. But you could do home decor with something like this layout, and it's great for babies or a wedding or pretty much whatever you want to do and how you want to make it. So yeah, I guess it is kind of techniquey, but it's just something out of the box a little bit. And I think it's just a really cute idea. So now I'm pulling in, I'm trying to look at my card. Okay, the stars. I'm going to ink that star up twice. The first time is going to be in real red, and then the second time is going to be in Misty Moonlight. And I'm stamping everything on top of the silicone craft mat there. It's the same thing as kind of like having foam behind it, but it's thinner and it works just as well. I'm letting the ink set in, making sure everything is clean. My hands are a mess right now, so I'm gonna have to stop and run to the sink. And so for our next image, that is going to be the line art little sprig thing there, and that went down in old olive, and then crumb cake. I'm doing the line art holly berries, and then I'm pulling in a blender pen and just pulling that ink out a teeny tiny bit to take away that stark white in between the leaves. I mean, it's not stark white, but just, to give it some texture there. And that is what we are looking like. So I'm going to start kind of arranging the card a little bit. We have everything stamped, and I'm bringing in our little die cuts there of the images. Now that one in the middle with the two holes at the bottom there that you see, if you can see the stem through that, it's lined up, but we have like really cropped and close edges anyway, so it works out and it's good. Brought in the mini machine because my paper scraps are small, under 3 inches. Going to run the die cuts through, and also the sentiment panel there as well. And that is going to be it for the rest of our die cutting. And I'm going to pop out all those images. I will have to run that star through one more time. But then after that, I have a lot of adhering to do on the back of that. And I will slow this down to really explain this to you what I'm doing. Okay, I staggered my panels. Some are going to be laid down with Stampin' Dimensionals, others will be with liquid adhesive, and I did it back and forth, and I'm flipping everything over for you now. And if you want to rewind, now might be the time to do it because I started talking and wasn't paying attention to what I'm showing you. But it's like every other one towards like an even stagger, if that makes sense. But again, like I said, you don't have to do that. It's just something that I wanted to do. So, yeah, I did it. So I'm pulling in our panel there that's going to go to the card base with Stampin' Dimensionals when all is said and done. And I'm laying that out with low tack adhesive on my glass mat there. And I'm going to lay everything out to get a good idea where I want to put that 4¼ by 1 inch plaid panel there in the middle with a ribbon and my sentiment. And that panel is going to be a little bit longer by 1/8 of an inch on each side from left to right. So, like I said, sometimes it's really hard to describe things what's going through your head when you're not live with somebody. And so I'm going through my brain process and thinking about what I'm doing here and just making sure that everything is laid out correctly. So I'm focusing in over on that left hand side and getting, all my 3 panels laid out because that way I can put together the rest of the panels and it's going to work out. And I know where to put my sentiment, adhesive, and all that stuff. So I'm leaving those edges on the right and left open so I'm not sticking everywhere and making a hot mess out of that. And lining everything up, and I'm pulling the tape off. And now I'm going to lay everything back down, grab our ribbon, and put that right over the center of that. Wrap it around the back. It's a frayable ribbon. I'm still going to grab some Scotch tape and pop it on there because I live in the Midwest and it's humid, so adhesive takes on a whole new meaning right then and there. So I put the adhesive or the Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of that card base. I'm going to pop it down on there, and then we're going to like put this thing together. And as I'm getting everything adhered here, I'm seeing like a lot of wedding images in, in the stamp set and the designer series paper, patriotic holidays, with the stars. I mean, there's so many options that you can do with this. Stamp on the designer series paper, color that in, you know, because there are line art images. And now I'm like trying to figure out how to place everything because I did change it around a little bit since I brought in the old olive and crumb cake rather, and I didn't do mossy meadow or moody mauve, but Cajun craze is also in there. I didn't use that, and pecan pie, which is surprisingly become like a really, it's a new favorite color of mine, and I've gone through a lot of cardstock of that lately. I think way back in 2007 we had a creamy caramel color that was a lot like pecan pie, and then Pretty in Pink came back. That was like way back then too, at least a decade, which is a great pink color. And I'm not a pink person, but I do like that one. So I'm getting everything down there, making sure it's all lined up, and you know, and then that's what we're looking like again. Pulling off the Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of the sentiment, and I'm going to go ahead and get that laid down. Now for next week, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm thinking maybe watercoloring or something like that. Again, leave me a comment. Let me know what you want to see. But definitely in 2 weeks from today, paper pumpkin alternatives. And I'm glad that you guys like them. And I really thank you for the likes and subscribes and comments. I really appreciate that. And this is how our card is looking like today. Very multi-dimensional with a lot of texture, kind of busy, but there's so much you can do with this. And again, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Um, like, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again.